Hello, everybody. I was going to say thanks for being here, but you didn't really have a choice. But still, thanks for being here for our talk today. Zach Erickson Dawadoa, Jijalaki. My name's Zach Erickson. I'm a member of the Cherokee Nation. I'm a professional forester and the forest resources specialist for the Wiyot tribe.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, excuse me. My name is David Hammons. I'm a forester for the BLM here in Arcata.
And my name is Marissa Vossmer. I'm also a forester for the BLM in Arcata.
And I'm Marissa McGrew. I'm the fisheries biologist for the Wiyot tribe. I also want to introduce Zane Ruddy. He's not here today, but he has been a really pivotal person who has been really helpful in all of this work that we're about to present on.
So today we're going to talk about a partnership between the Wiyot tribe and the Bureau of Land Management and Arcata office. And I want to talk a little bit about why this is a unique and important and exciting collaboration that we're endeavoring on. This is an ancestral boundary map of the Wiyot tribe. Many of you have probably seen this. It stretches from Little River to the north, Bear River to the south, Chalk Mountain, and Berry Summit to the east. Something to note about the Wiyot tribe ancestral lands is that, as you can not see, the amount of land actually under control by the Wiyot tribe is in the bright orange. And if you squint, you can kind of make it out. Headwaters Forest Reserve, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is in the red. And majority of, well, at least speaking about forests, there's very little public land within Wiyot tribe ancestral territory. Something not noted here is a little bit of state park land down at Avenue of the Giants at the very southeastern tip. And majority of that forest is actually locked up in private land ownership. The Wiyot tribe's ancestral land has been heavily impacted by logging, agricultural and development. As we know that Jarutici, Eureka, and Gutani, Arcata are right in the heart of Wiyot tribe's ancestral lands. So this means limited access to public lands, actually within the ancestral territory. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Headwaters Forest Reserve, but one thing I wanted to touch on, this presentation will zoom out. We've talked a lot about the area right around Wiggy, but let's not forget all the tributaries running into Wiggy. And Headwaters Forest Reserve offers, within Wiyot's ancestral territory, the only old growth, intact old growth, and it touches two tributaries, the Salmon Creek and Elk River, Hiksha'ri. So that water is actually the only water coming into Humboldt Bay that's filtering through old growth redwood forest. So now our BLM partners are going to give a little background on Headwaters and the Good Neighbor agreement that we've been operating under.
Thanks, Zach. So, like Zach mentioned, this area is heavily impacted by historic logging practices. So for over 100 years, the area was managed by Pacific Lumber Company. And then in 1985, they were hostily taken over by the Maxam Corporation, Charles Hurwitz. And from then on was an effort to liquidate the old growth for maximum profit. In the 15 years of ownership, there was numerous public protests culminating in the Redwood Summer between the San Francisco Bay Area and up here. And the state and federal governments entered negotiations with Charles Hurwitz to acquire the property. So in 1998, in a midnight deal in Hawaii, which is a fun little fact about the deal, it was past the time here, but we've got a few more hours in Hawaii, so we did strike it before midnight on the deadline day. So that was a $380 million deal for a little over 8,000 acres comprised both of old growth forests and extensively harvested second growth forests. This area does have some really good opportunities for restoration and creation of new old growth habitat. During the Palco time, a lot of stands were selectively harvested. So instead of doing a clear cut like they were doing in the Maxim days, under the Palco management, they would retain some large old growth trees within the stand. So for us, that creates a wonderful opportunity to restore these areas, much more so than areas that were clear cut. So this area was established as a forest reserve to protect both the old growth forests that are still there and the endangered species that rely on those forests. So in the 25 years of management by the BLM and CDF&W, as you can see my fun shirt here today, we're offering some great events this year. Get on to BLM California social media groups for some of those. But this is a really special area and some of the closest federally public land to the Humboldt Bay here. And I'll pass it over to Marissa to talk a little bit about the Good Neighbor Authority.
So the BLM was really excited to be partnering with the Wiyot tribe on these projects out at Headwaters. And when the bipartisan infrastructure law funding came out, it actually had a specific amount set aside for collaborative restoration projects with tribes, which gave us a really good opportunity to be able to get funding for some of these projects. And as Zach mentioned, we used an agreement under the Good Neighbor Authority, or GNA, to do that. And I don't have time to go through all of the details of all of the acts that cover the authority, but some of them are referenced here. But basically, it allows the BLM to enter into sole source contracts or agreements with county, state, or tribal entities to do any kind of restoration projects, both on public land as well as private land or tribal land, as long as there's some kind of benefit basically to adjacent BLM managed land. So, and these projects can include anything restoration focused, including timber sales or like road work to access the sites. But one of the kind of drawbacks of GNA, specifically when trying to work with tribes, is that while state and county entities can retain like receipts and money from timber sales and projects, tribes actually aren't currently allowed to do that under the existing authority, which hopefully is something that will change soon. But given the nature of our projects, the Good Neighbor Authority was really the quickest and easiest way for us to enter into an agreement. I think it took us a couple of months once the ball really got rolling. And so in 2023, the BLM Arcata office entered into a master Good Neighbor agreement with the Wiyot tribe. And that basically covers all kinds of restoration projects out at Headwaters over the next 5 years.
So while we were out kind of scouting around the upper reaches of South Fork, Hiksha'ri, up actually near the top, like we're pretty darn close to the actual headwaters of Headwaters. We were scouting, looking for potential forestry projects, and we came across this beautiful hazel patch. And hazels, if you don't know, is an important, extremely important cultural resource for many tribes in the Pacific Northwest, basketry and food. And, you know, we were able to look at this and get excited. And we were really pleasantly surprised that BLM also got excited. And so this agreement and this partnership has allowed us to start exploring this idea of, you know, usually we think of cultural resources in a project as a hurdle to overcome, or it's something that we inadvertently discovered and now the project's going to take longer. So we've been able to shift this view through this project to, well, let's go look for the culturally important plants and the cultural resources and plan around them and enhance them. Because when we work for the tribe, one of the greatest things as a forester is that I don't just get to look at the trees, but we get to start to think about how everything's interconnected. We get to see how silviculture and wildlife and plants and water and wildfire and climate change resiliency, and then all tie together. And then there's also this piece of access where appropriate, where we can reintroduce or continue the human interaction with these ecosystems. So David kind of touched a little bit on these seed tree forests, and I mean, I don't know how many foresters are out here, but I can guess that most of you look at this and can kind of see some issues of lack of understory vegetation. Maybe a deer or an elk or birds aren't necessarily super excited to go through a lot of this, right? We can talk about heterogeneity, and there's places for young forests and dense forests like this. We think about resiliency. Are we meeting any goals if we just leave this alone? And this is kind of the zoomed out view of this like 2 age class forest that's not ubiquitous, but common throughout the forest. And so we look back here, and if we see all these things as interconnected, are we meeting objectives if we leave it alone? Are we meeting our old growth conditions that we want to recreate? Are we improving wildlife habitat? Are culturally important plants thriving, which they have been completely neglected throughout the history of logging on the North Coast? Are we enhancing stream conditions? Are we seeing the forest as just one step of, like one of the first steps towards WIGI, the journey of water? Access, where appropriate, for gathering, and creating a more resilient forest to climate change and what I would say is the looming wildfire, which is inching closer and closer to us here on the coast.
By a show of hands, can I see how many folks have been to Headwaters Forest Reserve? Oh my gosh, fabulous. This makes me so happy. Okay, well, now that we've, seen the forest, now we're gonna bump down into the riparian and into the stream. Since a lot of you have been there, which I'm so excited about, and maybe there are some folks that didn't raise their hand and haven't been there, I really encourage you to go to this place. You enter the parking lot and you're walking along the trail, and there's little side trails that take you along the creek, and you can look into the creek, and if it's the right season, you are able to maybe see salmon spawning or lamprey spawning. And that is a really special opportunity and like special act to witness. And so for folks who live in Arcata or Eureka, this is a really relatively close area for people to drive to and walk through a beautiful redwood forest and eventually find yourself in old growth redwood forests and be close enough to see salmon and lamprey spawning within a very short driving distance. So part of the GNA has allowed us to do some of this in-stream restoration work. And this started mainly in 2022, where the Wiyot tribe was not yet involved in this work. BLM decided to start dropping some of these trees with the intent of enhancing salmonid habitat and enhancing stream complexity. And then Zane approached our department in 2023 and asked if we wanted to be a sponsor to help promote and help lead this in-stream restoration work with the GNA as a tool to do so. And so since 2023, we have been doing that work. We have been pulling some of these logs in with a lot of help from California Conservation Corps. Also acknowledging that Tim Metz and his crew was a really pivotal crew of folks who dropped a lot of those trees. And yeah. And then there's also this opportunity where the river can take over and kind of rearrange your work. We recently witnessed what we think is about a 25-year storm event in South Fork Elk, where a blast of logs got pushed through the system. And again, they rearranged some of our logs that we had placed. We were seeing logs that we knew we had moved and now they're in a different space. And then we were seeing logs that we have no idea where they came from, but somehow, and obviously they were in the system somewhere. And this is also a chance for the river to reactivate and reclaim its floodplain as well. Again, if you find yourself walking that trail and you look to your right towards the stream, you can see that from this storm event, I believe it was in January, don't quote me on that, but if you're walking on that trail and you look towards the stream, you'll see all of this river sediment on the ground. Kind of, maybe you might think it's choking out some of the understory, but really this is the river reclaiming that floodplain. And so based off this storm event and based off of some of this recent in-stream restoration work, this is going to guide us for the future, for the coming years in the rest of the work that we do in this river in terms of in-stream restoration. We have over 7 miles of river to work with.
So as we continue our work, these two pictures show, on the right is a Wiyot tribe citizen, and we were taking diameters on some of the old growth trees out in some of the residual stands. And it was really cool to have her out there. And on the left, we have Zane with a group of Indigenous Natural Resource Club students from the local area out actually talking about this project. So as we look forward to this, again, this is not just about restoring an ecosystem, but it's about restoring relationships to the land, and especially focusing on these Indigenous youth to get them excited about natural resources, and personally to try to get them excited about forestry. And so we're excited to see what this will bring, and it's new. As you can see, it's dynamic, just like the river is. So thank you.